Elon Musk just posted that we're at a fork in the road right now, and he hinted that Tesla shareholders who hang on can become very rich. It's tough though when the stock stays flat and daily we battle with enemies telling lies. Today we'll talk about what is signal and what is noise. Did you know, earlier this week, both NHTSA and China made moves that benefit Tesla massively? Or were you too busy thinking Elon is doing drugs? We've got the bulls here with us today. I've got Tesla boomer Mama the Queen, Alexandra Merz. We got Cern Basher, the bot bull. And later in the show, Larry Goldberg, the golden bull, will be joining us. Let's get started with that first topic, which is, Tesla stock, right? I keep hearing nowadays that there's a lot of concern by people saying, hey, you keep saying Tesla's a good company, but I've been holding and it's flat. It's been flat forever. This guy, Owen Sparks, posted this, said, Mom, how did we get so rich? Your father didn't sell his entire Tesla position a week before the launch of Robotaxi. It's a meme, of course. Elon replied to that, and he said this, forked vs. Forked versus. So what does that mean? I mean, we asked Grok, and Grok said, it means that Elon thinks that we're at a fork in the road. Either you believe that Robotaxi is going to succeed or you don't. And I guess that's what versus means as well, or maybe there's some sort of secret code here he's giving us. But I think that means that's what that means. We're at a fork in the road, and some people are going to stick their guns. Why don't we start with you, Alexandra? What do you say to people who've been holding for this long, and how do you think about Tesla stock? The company and the product. I don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. I enjoy listening to bears.
Looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
The longer term opportunity for Tesla is like no other company that I've ever seen.
I mean, it's a long road, right? And I understand, and people get impatient. And I want to compare it to people who were in Apple 20 years ago, right? They may not be as convinced today of being in Apple, but at that very moment, they understood very well how the technology shift happened. And so it doesn't happen. I remember Apple earnings calls from 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. So about 20 years ago, being sometimes difficult because they didn't sell as many iPods that they wanted, or people didn't understand what these smartphones are all about, or people thought there wouldn't be services associated with smartphones, and analysts were negative. And, there was so much happening, and it took time. It took 3-4 years more than people had hoped for. I'm not saying with Tesla it's going to take 3-4 years more. That's not my intention here. But what I'm trying to say is, Tesla events always seem to be a little bit underwhelming in terms of stock price appreciation. So you always have this anticipation, and people feel that there will be a certain moment in time, and now the stock is going to take $100. And that's not happening. It's just not, because it may have been in the stock price before, or people are actually unloading, or the event is finally slower or not as impactful as people had hoped for. So given all that, it's really good from time to time to reset your expectations and to reset where you think Tesla will be. And I'm still convinced Tesla is going to be a 10x, maybe even a 20x from here. Will it be next year? No. Will it be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? I have no idea. Last week, I was asked by one of my followers on X, what will happen when the moment comes when Tesla is at 3,000, or when we are in 2030? You're going to sell? And no, I won't sell. The relationship I have with Tesla and Elon and this stock is so much more than a price target. But I do understand that doesn't have to be the case for everybody. Not everybody has to have this passionate love story with this story. And it's actually Herbert always telling us you should never be in love with the stock. Well, I'm in love with a company, hence with the stock. So it's, sometimes you're in positions, I'm just going to divert a little bit away from Tesla, where you're very much a fangirl or fanboy or something. That happens to me, for example, with Bruce Springsteen. I was always a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. I went to a concert, whatever. And then Bruce Springsteen got engaged in Democrat politics. And that was like a knife in my heart. And then I overcame it. And I still love Bruce Springsteen. And when I wear his concert t-shirt, I still feel like the 16-year-old that I'm not anymore. Or I'm very much in love with a New York fashion designer called Norma Kamali. And especially her vintage stuff. I mean, I'm like, a crazy fan of her stuff. When I see stuff on eBay, when I see stuff coming up, I'm searching for it. I'm spending much too much time on it. Or a certain painter I love a lot, Roger Muhl, which is a French painter, and I have a lot of his paintings. I think we have the biggest private collection. I mean, you see one or two of the paintings always in my bag, just because I'm so obsessive with stuff when I'm into it. It's not a lot of themes I'm into it, but obviously Tesla is one of those. So I have my dopamine rush on Tesla, the company, much less on the stock price. And I cannot imagine a moment where I will sell, which should also tell you, don't take my advice, because you may be here for pure investment reasons and not for this love relationship that I and some of us have with the stock. So we have different goals in this game. And for those that are here for the shorter term, well, Tesla may actually not be the stock for you, because it is such a volatile stock. It is such a stock that comes with so many other influences. It was the Twitter overhang, it was the political game. There may be still a third party idea running around. There are so many things still happening that I always warn people that if it is purely a stock for you, Tesla is a difficult one. There are many people that are gambling options. It's the biggest traded option stock on the market. So many things are complicated with it. Also, because you have people like us who are so passionate about it that they forgive any and everything and are patient forever, right? So all that to say, I understand that some people are more reluctant to accept these long periods of hardly any movement in the stock price. I understand that. It doesn't matter a bit to me. I see the bigger picture and what progress they're making and what a exceptional company it is. And choose that, think it through, and then if you're good with long term, forget the short term. Don't make yourself sick over it. But if you're on the short term, understand whether you want to carry on that volatility.
Thank you for sharing so much of that. Yeah, there's several segments. It sounds like you're in I really support the mission of the company, and I'm going to carry it forward. Some of us, of course, are here not only for the mission, but we're trying to make money out of this. And so those people, they're looking for something different. So I want to get to, continue this conversation, because there's a lot you said there that I want to address. I'm sure Cern is going to address, but I wanted to get this into the conversation first. Here's Elon when he was interviewed yesterday at the Y Combinator, and he was asked kind of, the signal and noise, and that's really the main topic today. Let's listen to what he actually said.
Yeah, I mean, I did sort of feel a bit like, when I was in DC, taking a lot of flack for like getting rid of waste and fraud, which was an interesting side quest, as side quests go. But
got to get back to the main quest.
Yeah, I got to get back to the main quest here. So back to the main quest. But I did feel, a little bit like there's, it's like fixing the government is kind of like there's like, say, the beach is dirty and there's like some needles and feces and like trash and you want to clean up the beach. But then there's also this like 1,000-foot wall of water, which is a tsunami of AI. Like, and how much does cleaning the beach really matter if you got a 1,000-foot tsunami about to hit? Not that much.
Oh, so we're glad you're back on the main quest. It's very important.
Yeah, back to the main quest. Building technology, which is what I like doing. It's just so much noise. Like the signal to noise ratio in politics is terrible. So,
I mean, I live in San Francisco, so you don't need to tell me twice.
Yeah, DC is like, kind of, I guess it's all politics in DC, but if you're trying to build a rocket or cars, or you're trying to have software that compiles and runs reliably, then you have to be maximally truth-seeking, or your software or your hardware won't work. Like you can't fool math. Like math and physics are rigorous judges. So I'm used to being in like a maximally truth-seeking environment, and that's definitely not politics. So anyway, I'm glad to be back in technology.
I mean, that's the other thing that's different, Alexandra, is I think Tesla is not just a company that is, I'm going to make money out of it. He's solving the biggest problems that is facing humanity. AI, runaway AI.
He is. And I love that analogy with AI being a tsunami coming on a beach we're trying to clean up with needles and whatever else debris is. And that is really it. I actually experienced it in my own profession. I'm working in immigration. I see that my job will go away. And I want to be, obviously, I've made the decision to be an actor in how it will go away. But my job and my 5 employees is going to go away. Immigration attorneys is going to go away. So when you understand that AI in the next 2, 5, maybe 10 years, I don't think it's 10 years, but we'll see how reluctant adoption is going to be, is going to revolutionize a whole segment. And I mean, immigration attorneys and consultants is a tiny little niche, but that is true for everything, for banking, for anything. If you see that, is it really worth spending your time today on anything else than restructuring to be ready for that? And I think he saw that, and it also shows that Tesla is the biggest AI company out there. Obviously, XAI is going to be even bigger. Obviously, SpaceX is the one and only in the space exploration. So he is so precious to humanity because he is the leader with a couple others, but they're not dozens, who understood this and is putting it the right place. And I'd rather be on that mission with him.
Let's get our feet back on the earth. Cern, what's your answer to the people who say, look, I love Tesla, but I've been holding on to it for 4 years. It's frustrating. You keep telling me to hold on for 5 years. By the way, I never tell people hold on for 5 years. You should not hold the stock. But when can you prove that the stock when can you feel confident that the stock will rise? It might take many years for all these bets to pay off. Robots, driverless cars, all these things where it truly impacts the earnings. But people are expecting it to jump now and they're getting frustrated. Cern, what's your answer to that?
I wish I had a nice, easy answer that everybody would be happy with. The correct answer is we don't know. Warren Buffett has always said that the stock market is a device that transfers money from the impatient to the patient. So first of all, I think we need to recognize that. Also, if you're a student of stock market history, there can be very, very long periods of time when the overall stock market is flat, even as the economy is progressing forward. On a company-specific level, I recall that Microsoft, I think, had 14 years where it took 14 years for the company to regain and reach a new high. Amazon, I think, was similar. Now, that was a fairly special situation because after the dot-com boom, where those stocks had massive highs, they had massive lows, and it took a long time to recover those old highs. My point with that is it can take a very long time sometimes for stocks to reward shareholders. Ultimately, companies need to produce growing earnings and cash flow. Particularly cash flow is the key. And the short answer, I guess, to the question about when Tesla will do well, it's when cash flows start to materially grow. For the last few years, we haven't seen a whole lot in terms of earnings and cash flow growth, right? As the company has been working on the shift from making vehicles and selling them for profit, and the profits on those in the last few years on a per vehicle basis has come down, and production has kind of stalled in terms of the growth. And now we're shifting into these AI business models that offer an incredible promise of higher profits and higher profit growth. But none of that has flowed through the income statement yet. And so if you want a date about, when's that going to happen? When's the stock going to perform? Well, it's when it starts flowing through the income statement. And by the way, with NVIDIA, kind of the most recent example of a company that's done extremely well, its stock did not start to take off until the earnings were flowing through the income statement and they were showing massive growth. Wall Street did not believe Jensen when he was saying that this AI tsunami is coming. Wall Street is not believing Elon Musk when he's saying this AI tsunami is coming. And so you just have to make sure you understand yourself as an investor. Are you willing to kind of buy into that story and invest ahead of time and position yourself and then not really worry about, when the stock's going to perform? Or are you the kind of investor that is more short-term oriented, and therefore you need to make sure that you get the timing right? I think part of investing is kind of understanding about yourself and your own emotional state, right? And as much as Alexandra, falls in love with certain things, and that's great, I see myself as being kind of the exact opposite. I'm not really in love with anything that's material or stocks or companies, right? I'm very interested in Tesla because I see a very unique company that is extremely well positioned for the future in bringing these AI products and services to market. So we're both very excited about the same company. I think perhaps not for different reasons, but we're approaching it a little bit differently. And I think there's a whole host of other investors out there. Great hat.
What do you do?
Well, I put my poor people hat on again because you just blew it, and I am like, okay, so we're poor again. This is helping me weather the weather, right? And we're ready for it, right? IKEA helped me. Didn't cost much.
It looks great. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, that brings me to a question, because you're not in love, but you're in love with your wife. So what happened with the birthday present?
It's not her birthday yet.
Okay, we're checking in
next week. Next week, okay. I'll check in. Sure, we're waiting for you to. I guess the good answer would be I don't want to take stock money from stock and put it into a Cybertruck. But then her answer to you was, well, then why did you buy yourself a Cybertruck? You sell that and buy her one. Give her yours.
She gets to enjoy that just as much as I do at this point. Yeah.
Does she drive it as much as you do?
Well, we could have a discussion about her driving, but this may not be the time or place for that.
I think you should share that with us.
That's why you want Robotaxi. That's why you want Robotaxi. Yeah.
You don't like it picked up with those Ferrari drivers, right? Is that it?
Yeah. She being born into an Italian family, I think she thinks that she's a Ferrari driver, but she doesn't quite have the skills of a F1 Ferrari driver.
Okay, well, let me address some of the questions that we just asked each other here. I mean, so first of all, I'm willing to go through the pain, and it is a pain, right? There's no doubt about it. 4 years of pain of watching the stock fall flat. It is not an easy thing to say to people, just stay on it. No, you should not. If there's this tremendous pain, you should not. Why am I in it? I'm personally in it because I'm particularly in a growth mode kind of investing scenario right now. Different people in different scenarios. This is not financial advice because I don't know what kind of financial situation you're at. And so if you're in a growth mode, I'm looking for something that could do maybe 10x. Then you go, okay, which companies could do 10x? Maybe NVIDIA could do this. Maybe, these other companies you try to pick. And what's your thesis of why they can 10x? I'm still in that mode. Now, when you're waiting for something to 10x, you're not expecting it to grow like to 10x tomorrow, the next year. So you're willing to be patient, but it is very, very painful. And then to answer the question about, would you hold on to it if the stock goes to 3,000? Well, again, depends on what kind of company it is at that point. If at that point, the company's still an innovative engine company with incredible potential for it to go 10x again for some whatever where they're at that point, I would hold on to it. Would I hold on to 100% of it? Probably not. I would sell some of the shares because remember, by that point, the stock has gone to, $3,000 a share. Take a lot, sell it, and accomplish what you want to do with that, which is, pay off what you put in. So you feel like it's just really the rest of it, let it ride, or put it into whatever legacy you want in, nonprofits or things that you want to accomplish in your life. There's nothing wrong with selling stock. Absolutely, especially after a gain. So I don't fall in love with a stock. I used to really love Apple because I thought Apple was the most innovative company in the world. And then as soon as I saw about 4 years ago, that's when I started going, okay, this is not an innovation engine anymore. And I started to move to the one that I thought was, and I still believe is Tesla. And here we are, right? So now signal versus noise. I think that the big thing now is whether or not Robotaxi is going to happen here in June. So let's examine that. You shared this slide here, Alexandra. Tell me what we're looking at here.
So this is from a post by Gully, who screenshot what Polymarket is currently quoting for a chance of Tesla Robotaxi service really launched before July, so end of June. And we're down. I mean, we've never been higher than 40 and something percent, which was before June. And now, so the whole bet only came across, seems to be end of May. So this is a short 1 month timeline. And then it was very low, and it's back to those lows for the first 8 days of June or 10 days of June. Then it moved up to 30%, which is still not a lot. And then it dropped significantly 3-4 days ago. I have the feeling that was when Dan O'Dowd did his mannequin circus. And I went back up when people understood how staged that was. And then now it's back down below 15%. So what I found interesting with this whole timeline is, first of all, I always have this feeling that we have a cheat code. All of us that are using FSD, I have to feel we have a cheat code because we know it's good, and we know that what's going to be in the Robotaxi is actually even more advanced technology. So that's the first point. And then when you see that poly market, which is obviously, I would think, intelligent people who bet on this. I mean, nobody's going to do that just because they want to put some money somewhere. There you have multiple, much easier possibilities to put your money onto something that sports or whatever else that you may know something about. But so that people put money on only 14% probability just shows me that nobody has an idea out there what's happening, right? And I mean, yes, we are June 19th by the time this airs, June 20th. So we have only 10 days left. But that's still 10 days of a system that works, that is testing, that is in that town, that got the permission to do it. I would have expected a number much higher than 50%. Obviously, it was never higher than 40-ish. It's a real surprise to me.
And then also just dropped yesterday, top-level Tesla executive Omid Afshar said, excited for our Robotaxi launch this month. So he is saying it's going to happen in June. Driverless cars have been operating in our factories for over 2 months. Important to note that we are not using a dedicated lane for these cars. Trucks are coming with supplies and people are coming in and out of the factory all day. That's okay. Yes, cars are driving in factories. But he's saying Robotaxi launch will happen this month. And there are people spotting left, right, and center all of these Robotaxis all over Texas now. And so there's just more and more of these videos that are being shared out there. So, is it going to happen in June? Well, hey, Larry.
Hey, guys. We're taking poly market bets on Robotaxi.
It does, with a 14% probability only that it launches before the end of June. How about you show
like
quickly
easy
that
money.
graph again?
Sounds like easy money to me. But on the other hand, you've got to be quite cautious because there's all kinds of details in the terms of the bet.
Yeah, I would not make the bet because you've heard Elon say, right? He said, we're going to be paranoid. We're going to be very safe. And so if it's not ready, who cares? It doesn't launch in June. So I would not make a bet that it's going to launch in June for sure.
It's possible.
Yeah, if my perspective on this is if people are focused on that, they're focused on the wrong thing. As investors in Tesla, you want the company to get this right. If it takes them a few more days, a few more weeks, at worst, a few more months, okay, that sucks in the short term. Stock won't do very well in the short term, fine. If that's your time horizon, I would question that in terms of why are you in stock in the first place. We want Tesla to get this right. As Alexandra said, we kind of have a cheat code. Those of us with FSD, we see what it's capable of, and we're not even running the most updated version. We're not seeing what Tesla is using in Austin right now. And we're already seeing how great it is on our vehicles, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't, like Larry said, I wouldn't put too much stock in this, and I certainly wouldn't bet on it.
It's too much stock on this.
Yeah. If it is a good sense of where expectations are, then I see this as a positive thing. I like the fact that expectations are extremely low right now.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Cern. And, I'm hoping it's not going to be on the 22nd. I'm hoping it's going to be the 29th because I won't be able to make it for the 22nd. I'm going to be at Muskegon. I've kind of made my commitment to these guys. I can't let them down. But I wouldn't mind going to Austin next weekend and picking up a ride.
Well, Nick Gibbs was
exciting.
saying that, number one, if you're Tesla, you don't need a big fanfare production level. We've launched today. You don't need to do that. What you just need to do is take 10 cars, which they're probably doing now, and launching in a very defined geofenced area and already picking and dropping off people. And then next week, at some point, you do the first public ride. That's when, but you might not need to announce it either. You just start doing it with select people, I don't know how you expand it. You just open it up one day and say, we're open for it. I don't know if you need to have an event, right? In fact,
but Herbert, I think they've already decided
Right.
they're not going to have an event, but we talked about 10 and 20 cars, but the car watchers, the guys who are riding around Austin looking at cars, they've counted.
I heard
about
60,
50
somebody
cars.
said. Reese, Keith,
Yeah,
I
you're right.
interviewed Keith recently,
Yeah,
and he did a post, and he's now there, and he goes, he thinks there's 60 cars. Is that 60?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is. They've said 60. I was trying to be conservative, but there are a bunch of cars out there. I mean, I think, and the question is, will they launch the cars with a safety driver or not? Because Waymo ran with safety drivers for almost a year and a half, I think, in San Francisco. No, they ran in Arizona first, right? And that was a very long process with the safety driver. So it's possible that they'll run with safety drivers first. Look, they're going to do whatever it takes to keep it extremely safe and extremely well contained until they feel very confident. And that's normal. That is the way they should be doing it.
They should come out and say, we've actually been already running this for the last month. We've already got 20 cars. We've already done, 1,000 rides. Then we're going to open it up now to the public. That would be a better approach.
Well, I want to recall to everybody a little bit the timeline of Waymo. Waymo started in October 2015 in Austin with one car, 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Then in 2017, they started, so 2 years later, their early rider program in Phoenix, Arizona. And then 3 years later, in 2020, in October 2020, they became the first company to offer full autonomous ride-hailing services to the public without safety drivers in Phoenix. And then in August 21, Waymo started a commercial Waymo 1 test in San Francisco with a trusted tester rollout. So they had a pool of testers. March 2022, now, so we're 7 years in, began offering full autonomous rides without safety drivers to people at that point, only to Waymo staff in San Francisco. Then in May 2023, they expanded the Phoenix service to 180 square miles, including downtown Scottsdale and all those parts. And so that's when it became the largest, yet geofenced, but the largest area. And then June 23, so we're 8 years in now, opened the San Francisco service to the public. Then in March 2024, now we're 9 years in, Waymo launched in LA and began fully autonomous testing in Austin. Then only for employees at a 43 square mile area. And now, October 24, so 9 years later, reported 100,000 paid rides. And a month later, opened LA to all users. And then first international expansion in Tokyo and all that, with what we know recently. So I just think it is really important to understand the timeline Waymo did. I'm not saying Tesla is going to be that slow. But putting pressure on Tesla now, is it this week or next week? That's completely ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous when you compare it to Waymo, right? It's just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Who's putting the pressure? I think it's just us. We're the ones putting
No.
pressure.
No, you're putting pressure that it's the 29th, so you can go, Larry.
No, but I mean, it's the Tesla supporters community that is trying to guess every single date, every single hour, counting cars. I mean, we're putting pressure ourselves.
No, I don't agree with that. Because
you know,
it was Omit's tweet saying we're launching this month. You didn't have to do that tweet 2 days ago. The thing is actually Tesla pushing themselves, and they're used to that.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But yeah, I'm pretty happy the way things are going, and my expectation is that the growth of the Tesla Robotaxi service will be dramatically faster than the growth of the Waymo service. And I think the reasons are very, very, clear. I mean, the simple fact is they don't have to do the kind of mapping that, Waymo's forced to do by definition. Although I do expect that sometime coming soon, Waymo is going to do a lot of neural net, going to convert to, almost a fully end-to-end system rather than a calculator system. And I think they're going to have to drop LiDAR to do that. That's my guess. Maybe they can use LiDAR and cameras, and maybe they can achieve a unitary result. But I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, good. So what's your percentage chance, let's go down the panel here, that Tesla will launch a paid commercial robotaxi program to the public in June, next 2 weeks, next 10 days? What's your percentage chance?
To the general public and paid, 0.
Oh, okay. I'll forget the paid part. Just general public. Yeah.
General public, 0.
Okay.
To a group of invites, 75%.
Okay. You guys, next.
Well, like Larry, I'm going to be in Austin. I'm leaving for Austin tomorrow. So I want to see it just personally, taking my family there to experience it. That's maybe coloring my probability numbers. I hope that it's higher than what we just heard from Alexandra. I take the company at face value at this point. If they are posting that they are going to roll this out this month, I would assign a 50% probability to the public and a 100% to invited.
I'm aligned with that. I think there's a really good chance that they will open it to the public. I think that opening it to selected riders, I think, honestly, I don't see the difference between that and public. I think that the public rides could be limited to a certain number of vehicles, but I don't know whether or not they're going to have safety. They're going to have safety drivers, and so I'm not prepared to put numbers to that. But I wouldn't be surprised to see safety drivers.
Okay. But they've been testing, as we've seen, no safety drivers. Maybe a person on the passenger seat. Would you call that a safety driver?
No, they've been testing with safety drivers.
Yeah, that's what you're referring to, right? And then they would definitely have remote drivers. Yeah. And again, thank you, Alexandra, for going through your list. Great research there, because that is the thing. People keep comparing it and they go, oh, Tesla's only doing 10 cars. Oh, there's remote drivers. Oh, there's these, safety drivers. And it's like, yeah, that's what they all do. That's what you do when you launch a program. This is what you're supposed to do. So, okay, that is Robotaxi. Let's talk about signal versus noise. And you've got, do you guys know that there's 2 massive news that happened this week that is fantastic? That is amazing. Very, 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 very important for Tesla. And it's regarding NHTSA and China. Are you guys aware of that?
Yep.
Okay, so NHTSA, right, the governing body for transportation, said that they're going to fast track these vehicles that are self-driving. No steering wheel, no pedals, no controls. They're going to fast track that. And the one company that's really going to benefit from something like that is Tesla, and maybe a company like Zoox, the ones who have announced that they are making robotaxi, first kind of vehicles. So that was a shock that NHTSA did that. And I think even a bigger shock is China basically announced that they are now allowing companies like Tesla to take data out of Shanghai to be used for autonomous driving research. And so Tesla can now take that data that was in China, bring it to the US to add it as part of the whole, all the entire data they have. And they can take the data that they have, and be able to sort of make the Chinese FSD even that much better.
I have a question in that regard.
Meanwhile, people are like, yeah.
I have a question about the taking data out, and I wasn't able to find the answer. Unfortunately, I've been traveling all day, and so I haven't been able to do the research. Maybe Cern has the answer to this. The permission that they're giving, is it limited to a certain set of companies? Is it broad? I mean, what is the nature of that approval?
My understanding, Larry, is that it's Tesla only because it's specific to the controls that they put in their data center.
Okay, that was really, I saw the headline. I've been traveling, so I haven't been able to really drill down into it. But that's very important because, Tesla have earned the trust of the Chinese government, and they paid, they paid respect. I mean, they've earned the trust that they're a huge export earner for China, and they are the principal driver that is forcing China to become a really good EV manufacturer. And they really, given China a huge leg up in terms of technology. China, pursuing every advance Tesla makes, China, takes apart and focus on it. So I was thinking if they're ever going to allow anybody to do it, it would be Tesla. So this kind of confirms that to me. And that's very important. That gives them a huge advantage, certainly over any of the continental manufacturers or OEMs. But, those people are all focusing on this very accurate mapping. And I don't know whether China's going to allow them to do it. Anyway, that's an aside, but that's really good information. Thanks, Sam.
I'm just looking for it, but can't find it right now. So, okay.
The thing about
so
it is
did you guys?
I have said before, and I'll say it again. I think the value of Robotaxi in China is marginal. The cost of a driver in China is less than 25 cents a mile. At that price, there's the marginal value of a Robotaxi is relatively low. On the other hand, I think the Chinese people would love to have FSD, true FSD in their Teslas. I think they would pay a significant premium for that. And I think that's the value in China.
Well, isn't the value, Elon said it recently, he said the real value of FSD happens when you can sleep in the car, when you can do your makeup in the car, when you can work in the car. Well, and so even if you don't do Robotaxi and you launch you buy a Tesla and it has FSD, and then Tesla says, you can sleep in the car now. We believe this is unsupervised. You don't have to supervise it anymore. And we will pay for any insurance that happens, any occurrence, and you feel safe in the car. It doesn't matter about Robotaxi. You're going to be making, people will be buying your car left, right, and center. Like, it's skyrocket price.
Well, the
value is going to
the extreme value. Well, the extreme value
everybody's telling us
China
that's what they want to do already.
Yeah, the extreme value in China is the very long commutes, very, very long commutes. So if they can actually do the work and or sleep or both in those very long commutes, that solves a huge problem. By the way, that's true in India as well.
Yeah. So
India drivers
these are
even cheaper.
Massive news, NHTSA and China making these things. Meanwhile, this was what's on the and the headlines is that Elon Musk is taking drugs. Wall Street Journal, New York Times, they were writing articles about Elon taking drugs. So Elon felt that he needed to prove once and for all. He had his urine test released report a few days ago. And everybody said, of course, well, urine, yeah, that's like 3 hours. And then they go, well, and so now this is actually a hair sample. And hair samples is, I don't know, what do you guys know what it is? Is it like 3 months? I think it's 3 months. And people are going, that's not good enough.
Longer than that.
Yeah.
It's actually longer than that. It's as long as I think the first inch of the hair can grow.
Oh.
So it's not the same for anybody. Yeah, because they do it in immigration. So I know a little bit about it.
Oh, interesting. So this is proof that he's not been taking any drugs. And look at this. This is our classes of drugs. Everything here, including ketamine, by the way, everything's negative. And then now people are going, yeah, that's not good enough. He needs to be submitting toenails.
Yeah, it is so ridiculous.
Oh,
I don't
God.
understand why people waste their time on this. This is just not a subject.
Actually, guys, there's a very important issue that arises here. Now the question is, the barrier for a court, defamation suit is very high in the United States, in terms of press coverage. So here's the major question to ask. Is this sufficient evidence to force the Wall Street Journal to prove that it actually had these three sources and these three sources were in good faith? I don't know the legalities of it, but I suspect that we're at a point now where where Elon may have a legal basis to proceed, and I wish he would, because it's become
Free for all. Yeah. They can say whatever you want to say.
If this was the yellow press, if this was, some private individual making these claims, but this is the Wall Street Journal, for God's sake. These are supposed to be, anyway, all I can say is that I think it's time that he really, really did something. And maybe he is going to, because maybe that's the reason he took the test.
So on this topic of signal versus noise, are you guys, in terms of signal, as you've been following Tesla stock and your thesis, go down the list of what you've been following and you think are really the things that you need to be keeping your eye on?
Well, there's a whole host of things, Herbert, but they relate to the progress that the company is making, not all this stuff about whether Elon's doing drugs or this, that, and the other thing, his involvement in the government, etc. The reality is Tesla has 100,000 plus people that go to work every day. Many of those people are working on new projects, developing new things, innovating. That's in place. I also look at the investments that the company is making in future projects, the investments they're making in AI, the investments they're making in property, plant, and equipment. We have people flying drones every day showing us the progress of that, whether it's the semi-factory, whether it's Giga Texas, whether it's other places. Obviously, with autonomy, the progress that we're all seeing in FSD, right? And now, unfortunately, as individuals, we haven't had major update lately, but so we don't, we can't really evaluate that for ourselves. But those are the things that are far more important to me than a lot of the things that the media reports on.
Yeah, I have a question for Larry, because he seems to know more about this than I do. So in the last 3 months in particular, we've really seen the Wall Street Journal take an active stance at publishing articles that I would have not even expected them taking, right? Because it's so trashy. So mid-April, it was the one on Elon building a legion of children, and they launched the Ashley St. Clair kit then. Then end of April, it was that the board is looking for a new CEO.
All right.
Okay? And the whole back and forth, whether this was deliberately false and they maintained and whatever. Now it is the one on the drugs. I think there was one in the middle about, the pressure he put on advertisers, how extreme it was, whatever. So is it that the Wall Street Journal is targeting, in your view, Larry, is targeting Elon? Or are there, a couple of journalists just highly politically motivated? Or is it the other way around? Because Elon was in politics, this was now game on and they could just do anything.
Well, you have to understand that at the Wall Street Journal, more than almost any other banner newspaper in the country, whether it's Washington Post or New York Times or any other, there is a huge Chinese wall separating journalists from the editorial staff and the editorial board. Sorry, not the editorial staff. They have editors, obviously, but the editorial board and the executive management and ownership. And the reason is because when they when they bought the Wall Street Journal, there was such an outcry from the journalists and from the public that they established this kind of this committee, this structure.
You mean when Murdoch purchased Wall Street?
Yeah, yes, I should have mentioned Murdoch, and because he was such a interesting political character, and he really set off some alarm bells. And one thing or another, there was this Chinese wall set up. So the journalists in the Wall Street Journal are incredibly independent. Now, I used to write vitriolic articles about the stuff done on the back page of the front section of the Wall Street Journal, called Herd on the Street, because they used to write really, really terrible articles. Some of the Herd on the Street stuff was just, from a financial point of view, not from Elon's personality, so ill-informed that it seemed to me, purposely lying. I mean, anyway, I wrote several tweets about that. They were tweets in those days. However, I would say to you now that there is such a division amongst the press, in political division in the press, and the reporters in the New York Times, and in particular these independent reporters in Wall Street Journal, not so much the Washington Post anymore, they feel that they have license to do this kind of stuff. And the problem is, if you give journalists a license, then they kind of creep over the line, and then they reestablish a new line, and they creep over that line, they reestablish a new line. Look, when they posted this whole drug thing, I posted, these three guys that keep informing the journalists about all this news we read, I mean, these
sources, unnamed sources.
Yeah, they're unnamed sources. No, they're sources with knowledge of the situation or knowledge of and it's the same three guys. I'm convinced, and Huey, Dewey, and Louie is what I call them. I think Elon has to take action, and I'm just wondering whether there isn't such a long string of connecting dots that you can actually create a court. I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't know, but it just seems to me that you could prove, some degree of banality here that steps over the line.
And there has to be a line drawn in the sand, right? If not, it just keeps on going on and gets more ridiculous every time.
Yeah, the courts are very protective of the press, and if you read the early press, and just after formation of the republic, you'll see that this press is not as bad as it has been in the past. But nonetheless, I think a degree of responsibility. There has to be a degree of responsibility. They can't keep quoting the same three guys, the three people with knowledge of the. I mean, who do they drag? And you'd think that the news editors would say to them, guys, give us some information about these sources so that we can be sure that these sources are good. I think an editor has the right to do that, or should do that. But clearly, the editor. Yes.
Yeah, I just asked Grok where you would file a defamation lawsuit, libel, and the jurisdiction actually happens where the harm occurred, where the plaintiff resides, or where the publication was distributed. So he could consider doing it in Texas.
Yeah, but it doesn't really help. At the end of the day, it's a federal case, and so they'll end up with the Supreme Court. They'll end up at the Supreme Court, and then It really turns on how the Supreme Court reads. And the law is so well established. Defamation is so difficult to prove against the press in the United States. Not to prove, sorry. It is very difficult to actually enforce any real punitive judgment against the press, because the press is given a lot of latitude, a lot. Less so in the UK. Maybe you can sue Wall Street Journal in the UK.
Okay, keep an eye out on Signal and so much noise. Let's get into rapid fire questions. We did this last week. We're going to do this as a segment each week. And we've got a bunch of questions here, guys, and we're going to go through them and have each of you answer them. First question here is, do you guys think that digital superintelligence can solve self-driving cars? We just had Sam Altman of OpenAI in an interview yesterday say that he thinks that they're also working on self-driving cars, and they think that it's going to be better than what Teslas can do and what Waymos can do. And I think, right, that makes kind of sense. Once you receive AGI, this entity that can understand the world model, you can drive. You don't need all that data per se, just like you as a 17-year-old don't need, well, maybe you had all your years of data to get that. But what's your answer to that? Can digital intelligence solve self-driving cars?
I'm skeptical about that because you need lots of driving data. It's one thing to have a big brain, big capable brain, but the driving data, I think, to me, seems to be the missing piece in that. Now, certainly the bigger the brain, the more quickly it can learn, and maybe the less driving data you need. Perhaps I would agree with that. But I don't see OpenAI just creating superintelligence that suddenly then can drive a vehicle. I don't know. I mean, I guess it becomes easier. The smarter the system is, the easier it becomes. So I suppose at the limit, I would agree with that statement. But that's going to be a while before we get there. By then, it's too late. By then,
what do you mean?
By then, Robotaxi has taken over the world, and there's no room for OpenAI to squeeze in there.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I mean, on what cars would he even get the data? You know, if you see what's happening now with Waymo, it's how much do they have now? 1,500 cars, and still geofence and the whole thing. So who would deliver them sufficient data? Even if they suddenly would have that data, then it's a question of how they would process this. But, you know,
I think Sam's argument is different. I think Sam's argument is that superintelligence can infer what is required and can automatically, use that inference to figure out how to drive. I think that he's wrong in that regard. I mean, you only have to look at how human beings with ordinary intelligence learn to drive. They learn to drive by a huge amount of practice on the road, and for the most part being taught, how to react to certain circumstances and so on. So even if you develop superintelligence better than a 16 or an 18-year-old child, I think you have to get that practice, and that practice infers a lot of data. I am inclined to disagree with the notion that you need this, massive amount of data. I think you need the right data in an end-to-end system, and I think Tesla has said this before. The quantity of data is less important than the quality of data. Really good quality data does not have to be vast, but you have to find the good quality data in a myriad of circumstances, a myriad of conditions. So selection of data becomes more important than the amount of data, and the amount of memory and the amount of inference capacity becomes very important. A lot of people don't understand that Tesla's advantage doesn't just lie in the data. It lies in the inference computer they've designed, which is many-fold actually, more efficient than the equivalent NVIDIA computer at a fraction of the cost, a percentage of it.
Yeah, I like what you're going with it. So yes, digital superintelligence will be able to learn how to drive. Absolutely. I don't think they need that. The data is not a concern. They can learn it through, like you said, just understanding the world. They will learn it through YouTube videos. But the question is when. Let's say 3 years from now, and then we need cars that has inference compute in it. You need cars to be built that is able to then be driven by a computer. And so by that point, Tesla will have that. That leads us to the next question here. Is Robotaxi a winner take most? And what market share do you guys think Tesla will get by 2030?
It's definitely a winner take most. Actually, I wrote a post about this afternoon. It's definitely a winner take most. As for market share of what? Ride share, total miles? I guess that's the question I'd come back to on that. Ultimately, we're talking about the market being the market for total miles traveled. 3.3 trillion in the US right now, which will go up as prices come down. That's the market that I'm looking at. And it actually extends beyond that. Tesla is going to create new market opportunities for themselves with the Robotaxi network.
Who's next? What he said. Okay. Alexandra, what he said. So you guys think it's, all of you agree, winner take most, and you're thinking it's Tesla. So you do not agree that yes, there will be many other competitors, but because of network effects, what's the reasons why it's a winner take most?
I would, I'd put a little spin on that a little bit. I would say winner takes a lot. It's very hard to see most when you're talking about the scale of the market globally. We've seen that with Uber. We've seen national champions. We've seen Uber thrown out of market. It's very hard to see a winner takes most situation in a global economy such as we have now. I mean, if this was the global economy in 1980, I would have said winner takes all. This is the global economy in 2025. So I think winner takes a lot is what I like it.
And I also don't think that Waymo is just going to go away. I think they have this week very clearly shown that they are now going for an end-to-end solution. So it will, and they have deep pockets, right? Google is going to finance this. This is not a matter of do we survive financially for another 2 or 3 years. So they can go anywhere they want with the money. So there will be a Waymo solution which will come down in price. But the thing is, they are late. They are late to the game. They're late to waking up. Again, I laid out earlier how they're already on the road for 10 years, and they have really, really messed up the last 3 years because once it became clear where Tesla is going, they didn't shift, and they're only shifting now. So, yeah, I mean, actually, you're both right. I agree with Cern that this is Tesla's market to take, but it may not be like 95%. It may be a large part, but not as high as that.
I'd like to suggest. Sorry.
Well, if I could just expand a little bit on sort of how I view this. I see there being 4 stages. In the first stage, you have a few robotaxis in a given market, and you're playing within the confines of that given market, and you get whatever market share. So if you have 10% of the vehicles, you get 10% market share, something like that. If your cost structure is the same as your competition. As you scale up, if your cost structure is the same as your competition, you gain market share. The third part is if your cost structure is less than your competition, as you scale up, you destroy the competition. They can no longer compete with you because your cost structure is lower. You can lower prices. You force them out. They're uneconomic. Their history, they're dead. The fourth stage is the most exciting one for Tesla. You get to the point where it's total market domination. Because your vehicles are passing a given point in a city many times per minute, now it's not just a transportation service, but it's a platform that you can layer all kinds of services on top of. Delivery suddenly becomes possible, and all these other things that we've talked about, right? You can have in-car commerce, you can have entertainment, you can do data collection on behalf of the city for pothole detection or whatever it is. There's all kinds of services now that become possible because you've got vehicles anywhere and everywhere all the time. That creates a whole new business opportunity besides just moving people around. That's why I think it's also a winner-takes-all market, because it just makes sense at that point to have one entity doing all that stuff. And the reason is because the cost structure for Tesla is going to be so much lower than their competition. There is no room for anybody else because they're just going to lose money.
There may be some strictures on that because, there may be some states that will just outlaw Tesla for political reasons. There may be many countries that will outlaw Tesla for political reasons, as have happened to Uber. In Israel, you can't get an Uber.
Yeah.
The taxi guys got together and they forced the government to keep Uber out. And so today you have a taxi app that acts like Uber, that feels like Uber, that doesn't quite look like Uber, but has a good try at it. Israelis are not that great on graphics, but so there's going to be that, and so there's one other factor why I think Tesla will win, and it's the most overlooked factor in this whole market, in this whole burgeoning industry, and that is infrastructure. Tesla has a perfect, well-implemented, well-established, extremely well-managed infrastructure globally, at least throughout the United States, throughout Europe, and throughout China. And that infrastructure is going to support the rapid rollout of the Robotaxi. It's going to be very, very difficult for anybody to compete with that. Now, China is a special case, but in Europe and in the United States, the infrastructure is so well established, and none of these other companies have that infrastructure. Not even Uber. Uber have a lot of piecemeal contracts with third parties to service cars and to provide cars and so on and so forth. But that's not what you need in a Robotaxi. Anyway, that's just an aside.
You're talking about service centers, you're talking about factories, you're talking about superchargers.
I'm talking about the whole plethora and management. In every one of the markets, in every one of the major markets in the United States, they have a management structure supporting the service centers that they've got, the sales centers they've got, what do they do? They do like body shop centers and so on. I mean, just in the little town of Raleigh, there are 4 separate major Tesla, installations. So people don't understand what it takes to set up infrastructure. And you only have to look at the struggles that Waymo have had and are having so far in San Francisco to understand what they faced trying to roll it out globally.
Great answers, guys. Got another one here. I got 2 more. One is, how many cars per year will Tesla be making by 2030? So for so long, everybody was saying that Tesla's doing 50% growth each year. That did not happen. Now we're down. We all thought there was going to be multiple new gigafactories built each year. Now we're down to 3 million still per year, 2 million a year, maybe getting to 3 million at some point. But we're not expecting 20 million anymore. It's at some point. Or are we? Because with the new unbox model, with the new Robotaxi and building as many cybercabs, which could take you 5 seconds to get one cybercab out of the line instead of 35 seconds for a Model Y, maybe they can get back up to this. What are you guys expecting for number of vehicles which are robots and wheels, which are Robotaxi ready? This isn't selling to consumers necessarily, but how many Teslas will be made by 20
I think that's the main distinction you just made. If the question would have been how many cars is Tesla selling in 2030, I would not be able to tell you because you all know, I think my theory is in the end, they will not sell to consumers at all anymore. If the question is how many are they constructing to put themselves as robotaxis on the road, could still be 10 million, could still be 20 million. The question is, how much can the market take? Remember when Elon discussed the cyber cab, the emphasis was on how quickly they can be stamped out. Stamped is obviously not the right word, but how quickly they can get out of the line. And it was a matter of a couple of seconds. So the goal is to have cars flowing out constantly and being deployed all over the world as robotaxis. And so and Cern and me, we have this ongoing discussion on, is it really still worth selling a car when you can make so much more money on it as a robotaxi? And I'm just, the capitalist I am, I just don't see why you should be just nice to population and sell still cars.
So what's your number? 2030.
I could still maintain 20 million. I may be completely off, but I still maintain 20 million. And what I certainly don't appreciate is the Gary Blacks of this world telling us, you see, we'll never get to 20 million. Well, of course, you will not get to 20 million because in your model, they're selling cars in 2030. I agree that we will not sell 20 million cars in 2030. But if it's a question of making money on cars you made, that number is still doable.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if every robotaxi takes the place of 5 or 6 cars, then every million cybercabs you make, that's equivalent to, let's call it 5 million vehicles. So, again, Alexandra's pointing out the right distinction. We're moving, from selling vehicles to people making a little bit of money on that to this recurring revenue model. You don't need to make 20 million vehicles anymore. My answer would be, if the demand is there for it, then Tesla can scale that up. And that's been one of the reasons that they haven't aggressively grown their EV production, as demand has not been there. It's been a difficult environment for all automakers. There's also been some headwinds against EVs. Maybe some of them are self-inflicted by Tesla. Maybe they should have advertised or whatever, who knows? But there's also been all kinds of other headwinds placed at their feet, from economic challenges globally to political challenges and all kinds of things. So, to me, Herbert, that's kind of the wrong question to ask. It's an interesting question, I guess, to talk about, but it's not one that I'm particularly focused on. At the end of the day, they'll make as many vehicles as they need to meet the demand, wherever that demand is.
Okay.
I'm aligned with everything that Cern and Alexandra have said, in the sense that I do think people will continue to buy cars even in the new world of true robotaxis and cybercabs. And I do believe that it's in Tesla's interest to continue selling those cars for that marginal revenue on a global scale. But the cybercab is a whole new. The cybercab and the robovan are a whole new class of product, and Zoox is coming out with their view of what that product will look like, and so on. So I think they're going to be a bifurcated market, and we haven't talked about FSD full self-driving on semi trucks. But that's got to be the biggest product that Tesla will end up providing. I mean, the value add of that is gigantic. It's much greater than, say, the $1 to $1.50 to $2 that they'll get per mile on a car. They're going to get many-fold that number in a truck. In a semi. And I think that is also of great interest financially. So, Elon made the decision against his management's judgment and advice to stop manufacturing cars when he saw the future. He decided to start manufacturing cybercab. And that decision was made, with all the factories he had underway, all the production lines he had underway, and so on. So I think he's going to continue selling those cars, and I think he's going to continue evolving those cars for personal use. And the personal use will not go away. There are some aspects of personal use that are just not going to go away. Of course, they'll incorporate FSD, but I think they will continue to be used. And Tesla will be well positioned to sell those cars. So it's a good product. And it's not as if you're robbing your own pocket if you sell a car. Because if somebody is going to buy a car, whether or not there are robotaxis on the road, why would Tesla not sell that car to them? It makes no sense.
Well, I agree with Alexandra. I don't think that they're going to be making cybercabs. They're going to keep those cybercabs. Now, will they sell those to fleet managers? Yes. But will they sell them to consumers? Like you and I can buy one? No. You and I can buy a Model 3, and then over time, maybe they'll stop making as many Model 3s. They'll focus on factories that are building cybercabs and robovans. Yeah.
I think that there is going to continue being a demand for individual vehicles. Mm-hmm. That demand will be very valuable to Tesla.
Question for you, Alexandra. When is the shareholder meeting?
Oh, yes, that's the $1 million question. Well,
is that really $1 million question? So, for Elon, it's $1 trillion question.
It is
$1 trillion. Yeah.
Exactly. So we still don't have the proxy as of June 19th. Can come any day. Can still take a couple of weeks. And once we have the proxy, it's maximum 60 days, but usually 8 weeks out to the shareholder meetings. So now we're going into the late August, September timeline, if it comes soon, and it may even be later. So I did publish a couple of days ago the 10 latest days of shareholder meetings. We have actually two tendencies. Either they're around September, October, or they're at the beginning of spring. So I have the feeling that we're probably moving into September, October this time. And which bothers me, just a second, Larry, which bothers me for one reason only, but it's already too late for that. Last year, we did an incredible work with a team of people on X on who voted what on the compensation plan and on moving to Texas of the institutional investors. That was possible because all these institutionals have to do SEC filings end of August of how they voted in the 12 months from last July to this year, June. But obviously, now that our proxy is going to be later, we will have those results only next year in August. So we cannot immediately interpret who voted what this year. We have to wait a year for that.
Okay, Alexandra, you're going to love this. So we're filming this show right now on Thursday. And as we were filming it, remember what we talked about at the very beginning? We talked about the poly market bet on how likely does the public who are making bets that Tesla will launch a Robotaxi by the end of this month, June. And it's a 14% chance. Remember, that's the kind of thing at this point. And one of the things we were talking about is signal versus noise. And remember what we started off at the very top of the show was Elon saying there's a fork in the road right now. Either you believe you're going to make money if you keep your stock in Tesla because Robotaxi is launching. Well, he just replied to Gali. And here's what he said. Remember, Gali said this, poly market only gives Tesla a 14% chance on June Robotaxi launch. Elon said, money-making opportunity. I'm not kidding. He's actually saying that's a money-making opportunity right there.
There you go.
I don't know. He shouldn't be doing that. He should not be doing that. Can he do this?
Well, he's factually correct. It's a money-making opportunity for Tesla.
For Robotaxi, right? Because you could make money. That's what he's saying, right?
You can read into it in terms of what it means for the stock.
It's not financial advice.
I don't need my poor people IKEA hat anymore. Is that what you're telling me? Don't you love it, Larry?
Actually, matches your necklace.
That's what I did. I mean, come on, this is whole styling. I'm thinking this through.
You thought this through, did you? So you'll become poor if Robotaxi fails, right?
There you go.
This is great. That's great news. Confidence of Elon carries us forward. Thank you guys very, very much. I appreciate this. Good. Awesome. See you guys. Bye all.
Thanks, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.